You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to an episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, huge shout out to our sponsors. The Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. So a huge shout out to Governor Anatoby for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my two pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my two golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And the one thing that I do with the sponsors that I have is stuff that I use and recommend, like the Diffies with my car, Hall of Fame. They're awesome. Citizens Banks, where I bank. Chickasaw Nation, huge supporter of Oklahoma. And adding to that is the Doghouse. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too. But I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedogHouseOKC.com and follow them on Instagram at thedogHouseOKC. And hopefully our pups will run into each other. Turn your dream home into a reality with Home Creations, a family-owned and operated builder with over 40 years of trusted experience right here in Oklahoma. Call Holly at 405-364-9999 to schedule a showing or visit our website for more details. Home Creations, building homes, shaping futures, strengthening communities. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode. We are down in Midwest City, Del City area. Saw this beautiful plane coming into land, so we're close to anchor. I love planes. I could sit there and watch this plane land. Like most kids, I would guess. Grew up wanting to be a fighter pilot. It's just cool when you watch Top Gun and you're a kid of the 90s. But it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest today, Mikey Dillard.
Mikey Dillard.
Mikey Dillard
is my father, so.
Okay.
Yes.
Mate, in this awesome facility, 650,000 square feet is what you said.
Yes,
here
sir.
Right now. Huge facility, big operation. I saw you fight at Fight Night. That was my first introduction to you and to Fight Night. Bit of a sore head the next day, as probably like most, but I
had one too, different reason.
Different reason, yeah. But yeah, great night. Obviously, the bank that puts it on for the police athletic league, right?
Yes, it is.
Right?
Supports all the sports leagues in Oklahoma City through the police funding.
But we're excited to dive into your story and hear a bit more about your career and obviously the family legacy and this giant facility and everything that you do.
Absolutely.
But yeah, man, thanks for having me down. Thanks for recording in this great place. I know you're used to recording. Sometimes we don't enjoy doing it. We're getting used to it, but you know what it's like to be in front of a camera. So excited to dive into your story. But
yeah.
I mean,
it all really starts right here. So
that's what I was going to say, right? You've grown up in this. And so start with, what's the earliest memories for you?
Martial arts is a big part of our family, obviously. And Century Martial Arts was the birth of our passion for martial arts. The company's motto, I really, really believe in, which is that martial arts, we exist to inspire people to experience the life-changing benefits of martial arts. And the reason it's so passionate for us is that the story really starts with my father. He had some stuff happen, when he was younger, and found himself actually in a kind of being held ransom situation when he was just a child, and kind of had one of those life impacting moments where he was like, I don't want that to happen to my family when I get older. I want to be able to defend myself, to know what to do in those situations. And kind of one thing led to another that led him to martial arts. And the story of the company really began, he was the first person in my family to graduate college, and he worked for Kerr McGee, Oklahoma company. We were in Oklahoma when he started the company. They shipped him off to go work overseas, and he figured out really quick he didn't really want to do that. My grandpa was not so enthused. First person to graduate, he leaves and quits his job overseas. This thing that everyone's been striving to have. And my grandfather was actually the president of Love's at the time, another great Oklahoma company. The Loves are still very close to us. And he said, I'm going to go start a martial arts company. My grandpa was like, you're going to do what? That is not what I had in mind with your college education we just paid for. But my grandpa believed him. He used his last paycheck to import some uniforms, and he hit the martial arts circuit with his soon-to-be friend, Carlos Norris. Chuck Norris, most people know his real name is Carlos, also an Oklahoman. And they started the company. I mean, they started going and hitting all these tournaments just like the good old American way, and selling things out of the back of their car. And he always jokes he would take this big van, and if he did good, he would get a hotel room, and if he lost, he had to sleep in his van. And that's really how the company got started. And he got his first big break, or we did as a company, by what's called the freestanding punching bag. And he really noticed in the martial arts market that, everybody's in these fixed spaces. You ever go to a gym, you notice that floor space on a martial arts mat, that's where the magic happens. And if you have a hanging punching bag, which everybody wants at their house, then your mat space, or where you make your money, it's kind of fixed. You can only punch the bag, can't move around on it. And so we needed something we could roll on and roll off. And that was the birth of the freestanding punching bag, or what a lot of people recognize now. We have one that has Bob, the punching bag that looks like a man. So Bob is one of the most famous people in our company, and I always joke he's like the employee of the month every month kind of thing. But that's really the birth of the company and how we got started. And we're very proud to be Oklahoma based.
Yeah, and I can just thinking about your granddad, right? He's paid money for your dad to go to school. First one in the family graduate. He's like, deuces, I'm going to go fight and figure this out.
Not the best way to start your career.
Yeah, but obviously Dad was entrepreneurial and wanted to. There wasn't just a fighting element to it. There was a business element as well to serve the community, and there was a need in the martial arts community for the products that you have. Yes,
there was. And martial arts was growing really fast in the 70s. And it's interesting that the people like the Joe Lewises of the world, for those that know martial arts, Bill Superfoot Wallace, and then into the UFC era. That's kind of when I became into the company, was the UFC era. And imagine being young man in your teens and your 20s. Like literally, we invented the UFC glove that they use now. That was actually one of Chuck Norris's gloves we had used previously, and we got that contract with the UFC and started working with them all the way up until 2014. And so I was like thrusted as a young man in like the birth of the UFC, like hanging out with these fighters and stuff, which is not always all it's cracked up to be. I'm the guy getting punched in a lot of photos and stuff, holding pads, but it was really cool and really impactful to my life during that kind of evolution.
Well, and for the business too, right? Like it helps the business that you understand the mind of a fighter, you're in there yourself, you get it, as then you're producing products for yourself. What do you need? And it makes total sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like often I feel like I have kind of two personalities, or two sides in my life, and it's this outward-facing martial arts aspect of it, which is dealing with fighters and going to gyms, and I'm on the road at tournaments a lot. We have a company in Europe, and we're at fights, and I love that stuff. It's very passionate. But then we have the Oklahoma side, where here we also support the martial arts community, but it's much more about our employees here, and having an Oklahoma-based business is a big deal to us, and manufacturing is, and especially sewing. We do a lot of sewing here. It's kind of a lost art in the United States, and it's something that I think that the country is getting, realizing we've lost all these core competencies of how to make things, and we've never lost that here. And that's always been our edge against our competitors. But I'm very proud to be able to employ over 220 Oklahomans and keep that strong, and we take that very seriously, because as the business goes up and down, we try to keep, we don't lay people off and try to do these mass things like big corporations. We're a family-owned business. The only people we serve is ourselves, and it means a lot to be able to have Oklahoma people employed. I feel that's
definitely
big burden.
Walking through here, and like I said, seeing some employees sat doing their thing. I mean, you're right. Like it would make a lot more sense on the balance sheet sometimes if you just send it to China or send it to Asia or whatever, and and then you takes your profit from this all the way to this. But then also, you live in the neighborhood, you got friends here, you got family here, you have relationships, you have this is home, right? And
and we support the community.
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of people, when you see this, or if you don't know me or you don't know Century and you're not a martial artist, a lot of people don't know that we're here. I mean, we're the world's largest martial arts distribution company, and they're like, "What? That's in Oklahoma? I had no idea. I thought you guys just did oil and rodeo stuff." But the reason that it's hidden is because we're really impactful to the martial arts community outward, and then to our employees and who we employ inward. And so we don't have, we recently started supporting the Oklahoma Marathon, things like that. We never. It doesn't impact our sales or anything to do those kind of things. We want to be involved in the Oklahoma community as much as possible, but the way that we do that is through the Oklahoma martial arts community. All the gyms around Oklahoma, the fight scene, and all those kind of things, we have a big impact in. Yeah. However, you got to go to fight night. I don't know if you go to a lot of fights.
I know. That was my first.
Unless you're in that lane, it's just not something you're really exposed to.
Yeah, I can't think if I've been to any fights before then. Probably no.
Kind of makes you want to go to nowhere.
It's just fun to be at. And I remember my dad. I grew up in the UK, and my dad, one of my dad's friends, who was a mechanic, was into boxing. He fought as a kid, and it's more boxing back home.
Yeah, of course.
Especially when I was growing up. Now, obviously, there's a little bit of both with the rise of UFC. But
McGregor,
he would always, McGregor, right? He would always talk about kind of like holding the pads, and Rob was this friend's name, and just like. Rob still today goes to all the big kind of conventions, and he was like signs. He's got all the memorabilia and taking photos of all these famous fighters and stuff. And like, I played golf. It's not a world I was a part of.
It's just a different thing. It's still sport.
Golf and soccer, but like it's and I've had a bit more interaction with the PBR and the rodeo, and that gladiator prize fighter mentality that kind of mirrors as well as martial arts. Like it's two lost arts and two lost sports, right? Like this stuff's been around as long as we can remember. One question that I'm thinking of straight away, though, when you mentioned community, Oklahoma, and being an American-made company, this is ingrained in you growing up. What are the lessons, or what are the things you remember from just your childhood growing up around this, that this seems normal to you to do today, but there's reasons that it sounds normal and feels the right thing to do, and that's things that dad has done, things that your grandparents done, things that your family has done.
Yeah.
What stands out?
What stands out to me is, and I guess I say this not just to say this, because this is just how, if you've ever met my family or my father or anything, I didn't really know this is what I was going to do for a career. I wasn't told that. Yeah. I wasn't really given that option, to be honest.
Family business.
Along the way, it was actually not even an option. I worked here in the summers. That's what I thought.
Wow. Okay.
I was really being groomed without being told I was being groomed. And so I cleaned the toilets here for 3 or 4 years, swept the floors. I worked with our maintenance guys, loved them. That was actually some of my most fun times. But in high school, I would work with those guys, fix machines, again, clean messes up, go on the roof on Oklahoma, 120-degree heat, and then I would go to football practice that night. And that was kind of my life, and I was just doing it because I got told I got to have a job. And, I was told that this is what I was going to do by my parents, just like any other high school kid who gets told he's got to earn a job. I guess it's not just like anybody, but it was, I know what you mean. It was rolling up your sleeves, hard work.
Right.
And then as I started getting into college, I started getting told, you got to work this summer in this department and this department. It's like, okay, I'd just like to go out and get a job or something. But I continued to work in every one of our departments. I've now worked in every single department in the company except for our sales, which I just kind of know our customers. But that allowed me for this unique perspective. I didn't know my father was building for me that in a shipping company or a product company like ours, oftentimes, I started in distribution as well once I kind of graduated college, and that's the last opportunity you ever have to touch a box that goes to a customer. And that's really like you're seeing it's too late. Once that point, that box is gone. If you made a mistake, if something happens then. And so I worked all the way back to kind of like manufacturing and learning and creating products where you can impact this moment by designing correctly and knowing everything in between and all these other departments that you have to touch in order to make the box the right size, or make sure the packaging is right so that it doesn't get screwed up whenever it arrives to the customer, and earned my respect to basically everybody in our company, because I didn't want to come in here with a silver spoon, and did not know that I was actually partaking in that when it was happening in real time.
Yeah.
And so whenever it came time and I graduated, and it was like, what's the deal? Are we going to do this? I was like, yeah, I guess let's do it. I would love to come work there, I guess. Yeah. And I was actually going to go to law school.
Oh, really?
And didn't want to. I'm glad I didn't go to law school. But
yeah, true.
At the end of the day, I ended up coming here, and I've always had I feel like I've been building the respect of all of my mentors around here, because we're now going on our 50th year.
Wow.
And most of the people that I work with are older than me, and they've been my mentors. So I don't really get to walk around here and tell them what to do. Yeah. But I think I've earned their respect, and vice versa. So we work well as a group together, and we're going through a big, transitional period between generations, and they're helping me do that.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, when you look back on it, it makes total sense that Dad had his idea, he had his plan. He's like, you're going to, dot around and figure out all the eventually this place is, going to be under your leadership. But when you're in high school and when you're in college, what do you think obviously you grew up in this area, but you must have had your own aspirations, dreams. You mentioned wanting to be a lawyer. Like, take me to that time in your life. What are you thinking? This is a summer job, and you're just, grinding, getting your work done, going to football practice. What do you think is going to be, like, what were your dreams and career and aspirations going to college and thinking about that stuff? And then
I just never really even thought about this as an option.
Right. Well, it was just probably normal.
I was like, I wanted to be
like
an architect at one point, and then I realized math was not my strong suit. So I ended up going down the path. I was in business school, and I enjoyed business school. I was an entrepreneurial major at OU, and I had got an accounting major as well. Okay. But law school was ultimately my ultimate goal. Yeah. And I'm not sure why that came. I guess I got more comfortable with presenting arguments, I guess you could say. And I really liked where that was headed, and the business side of that, and the idea of doing acquisitions and putting people together and businesses together and making that kind of synergy work whenever you put two companies together and do an acquisition, and what can be the other side of that. Yeah. And so that became my ambition. And then I kind of realized as you go through college, you start to meet friends and stuff that that are, they're years older than you, and they're going through law school, and they're experiencing, or they're in their career. And I even did an internship at law firms, and I was like, this seems like a lot of reading and writing and doing things, which this is much, I do spend a lot of time answering emails and in spreadsheets, don't get me wrong, but there's something about being able to physically, touch what you're making and talk to people and spend time with people all day on their feet, and have this, I can go back, I can transcend between the manufacturing and the marketing and shooting videos and being on the mats. I mean, that's what I really love to do. Yeah. So it's like, there's a new passion I have for breeding this next generation of martial artists, and where the evolution of the sport kind of goes. Yeah.
Are you on the mat like as soon as you're in diapers? You just remember just rolling around with Dad's in it, you're in it?
A little bit of that. I started when I was 4.
Okay.
My father put me into just traditional martial arts, which is kind of the core of our company, in Taekwondo. And then I did that for a while, developed it. I always joke though, I'm one of the, usually in Taekwondo you can get your black belt in 2 to 3 years, but then you get your degrees. It takes 10 years. Well, it took me about 17 years to get my black belt, because my father was very patient. Did football and state championship football player, and I did track and all these other things, and got that out of my system. And I always got to come back to martial arts in these periods, but I always had to pick up where I left off, and a little bit of peace. And he's a 10th degree black belt. I am not, and I have no aspirations to being that, because it takes a lot of
serious dedication.
Really, it's like really, you're doing specific form. You got to be in front of these grand audiences, people for your promotions and things. Yeah. And our company, we just used to do traditional martial arts. Now we do all types of martial arts. And so instead, I've taken the journey of being really proficient in just a little bit in each one of them. Yeah. And so I study a wide variety of martial arts over my career, as opposed to really deep in one. Yeah. If that makes sense.
My brother did Taekwondo growing up.
Did he?
I have a younger brother. He's 5 years younger than me. Not so dissimilar situation, I think, to he wasn't held with ransom or whatever, but he definitely had some bullies at school, and he came home and he's like, I didn't want to figure this out. And his like soccer coach, I think, was also in Taekwondo, and he's, put it in there. And we would always play fight in the house, and I would, because I'm taller than him and 5 years older, I would always be on my knees and he would stand. We'd be eye to eye, and he'd have his whole big chunky helmet on and his pads, and he roundhouse kicked me in the side of the head one night, and I just like swiped his leg from him, and he like hit his head on the corner. He had his head, he had his helmet, he had all his padding.
There's a lot of that going on in my house.
Yeah, right. But he hit his head on like the corner of like our fireplace as my parents were walking through the door,
and
so then it was all my fault, right? Because I reacted.
We have a lot of those moments.
A lot of those stories. But he had his
that's exactly why our motto for our company, it means so much to us, why we do what we do, because there are a lot of kids that find martial arts because they're the oddball at school, or they get bullied, or realistically, not everybody's great at team and ball sports. And we always said nobody sits on the bench in martial arts, and it does have a way of instilling like confidence and courage, especially in young kids in a very impactful age, in which they can have these really lifelong values instilled in them by their instructors that they'll carry. Nobody can ever take that away from them. And even if they don't get completely finished, or they don't do a career deal. For me, I didn't like to public speak when I was little. And I remember, I will never forget the first time I had to do my belt test, which I probably was like 5-6 years old. And I'm standing in front of like all the parents that you never met. You see the kids every day in class and everything, but all the parents and the grandparents come, and all of you all line up, and you're just like, your first moment as a young child where no one's going to help you. You have to do it by yourself, and everyone goes to the side, and you are out there by yourself. And Sensei looks at you and just, all right, begin. And you're like, you get that like freezing, and then during the headlights moment, like, I got to do this in front of everyone. No one's going to help me, and if you screw up, everyone's kind of like a pin drops and totally silent. And I will never forget that, because I was like, oh, and I got over that, and martial arts helped me get over that to be able to stand up in front of a group of people and speak and do these natural things you have to do as a young man. Yeah,
well, and I think not to mention just the other side, that I mean, it does great things obviously for your physical, but also your social and your mental side too. Like the amount of calmness, and you can speak to this more than I can, because you're definitely more, you've got more. What's the right word for it? You're more of a fighter than I am, and you've done this professionally and more than I have. There's a calmness that you have walking into a room, probably, and knowing that like you're never. I kind of relate it to people who run long distance or do hard things. Once I've ran long distance, nothing phases me for the rest of the day, because I've got it in, I'm done. Right? And probably the same for you in fighting. You're just like, you go and, whereas other people, I've seen it, they have a shorter fuse because they're kind of on edge, or something's pissed them off, or like something gets to them more. Whereas if they've just gone and done some exercise, and it doesn't have to be martial arts, but if they've just exercised that morning, there's like correlation to it. They're just like at peace for the rest of the day, or mentally better off. And there's plenty of, things out there that when we've worked out, we feel better for the rest of the day, and we're, sort of a better human being as well. And there's definitely a misconception about martial arts in terms of, it's like, oh, you're a martial, everyone thinks, don't hit me. Right. Like, that's actually what we tell people not to do, And it's like, I talk to my friends all the time, and maybe I'm a little bit, especially if I had a beer or two, I would get a little grabby and joking around and stuff. But in reality, like, they're like, oh, I was getting a fight, all stuff. Like, actually, I've never been in a I don't get in street fights all that often. Yeah. Maybe I have once or twice, but it's not. It's a protection. Compared to you, how many times have you been there? Oh, 5 or 6. I'm like, I know. I don't, because it's a deterrent, and it's a way to like de-escalate the situation, because I know how bad it could get, and nobody needs to go there. Nobody, trust me, when you're with your wife and people are throwing things, the worst thing, it ruins everybody's night, including hers, if you get mad and punch somebody in the face. Yeah. Nobody wants that. And so just avoid it by de-escalating the situation and learning to walk away. And knowing martial arts is actually the biggest deterrent, because people think, oh, that's that one guy. I'm like, thank God, just don't even come near me. I mean, we've all seen the videos and the movies, and what's that classic video of that kid in OU, right? Yes. Some football players pick on him, and he's like, dude, you don't. Just stop. Just don't do that. Yes. Don't do that. Everyone's not got rude. He gets pushed. Yeah, exactly. He gets pushed a little too far and does, what he's been trained to do. But let's go back to when you started taking it seriously, as far as you mentioned, your dad let you do a bunch of other things, be a kid, grow up, play all the sports. When does it get serious for you that you're thinking martial arts is what's something that I want to do? I want to get in the cage. I want to compete, and I want to have this as something. You might have dropped baseball or football. You generally gravitate towards that one thing? What time is it?
Towards the martial arts or for the business? For the martial arts, it's for me, it was about. It's very hard to continue doing a basketball career or football career after a certain point. Only 1% of athletes make it to this other deal. Martial arts is different. You can carry that on for forever. And so I think for me, it was in college when I realized that I was still boxing and stuff for fun. I used to do some charity boxing fights too. That were college just to raise money for charities. And I was the only one still working out. It was like, freshman 30 is a joke, but it happens. And I look at all my friends and stuff, and no one's, they're playing some pickup games of basketball and working out here and there when they can. But the rhythm of training and stuff, and like being an adult training martial arts is not very a weird thing.
Yeah.
Being adult, going and playing in like a semi-pro basketball league, it's not that weird if it's like a rec league, but it's just not something that. I don't know. There's not like a brick and mortar basketball gym place around every corner. And so for me, that was when I was like, this is like, I kind of enjoy this. And then after college, I got into Jiu Jitsu, and Jiu Jitsu has grown substantially in the last couple of years. I mean, it's really kind of taking over the world in our world. And Jiu Jitsu is something that is great because it doesn't matter if you're strong, if you're weak, if you're flexible, if you're not, anybody can do it. And it's about, the repetition and the learning, and there's technique, and it's like a whole, you can go really deep into the technique, or you can just be like a big strong guy, or you can be a flexible person, and everybody has their advantages, and there's a competition every weekend if you want to push yourself. And it kept me in great shape, and I really enjoyed it. So I always joke with people, it's like you can go run, and for me running is great. It's almost like a meditation because I can't think when I'm doing it, but when you do, that's just like moving your legs over and over and over and over again, especially on a treadmill. I'm like, I can't do that. But doing jiu-jitsu is like the same exercise and the same repeatability of all this kind of stuff. Only your whole body's being activated, and you're being challenged in different ways. And I can get up and I don't have a black eye, and I can go to work right afterwards, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah, that's. Again, my younger brother is a police officer back home, and he's recently got into he's a CrossFit guy and loves all that stuff, and I think he's nuts, but he got into jiu-jitsu, and we FaceTime every now and then. And I said, how is it? And he goes, I got humbled pretty quick for someone half my size, he's 6 foot, lean, runs like typical kind of CrossFit athlete. But
and my son's in it right now, and I've just said anybody who even thinks about getting their kids into martial arts, I mean, jiu-jitsu and traditional martial arts, any of the martial arts, it's just a great thing to get your kids involved into. In Oklahoma in particular, I mean, we have a great martial arts scene. There's tons of gyms, and people are always surprised if you just get on your Google Maps and you just type in martial arts or BJJ and see, you're like, whoa, I didn't know there was 45 schools in the metro area, and they're all pretty good schools. We don't have some people have an unhealthy martial arts communities. We do not have one of those. We have a great martial arts community, and I can't tell you, my phone gets, I get parents asking me daily, like, how do I get my kids involved? How do I get my kids involved?
Google's great.
How do I get involved? I'm like, by the way, martial arts gyms, well, may be intimidating. They are businesses too. They just want you to walk in the door, ask them some questions. How do I sign up and get interested? They'll probably give you a free lesson, let you watch a class, and it's a business. So it's not so hard. You just have to be interested.
I had Rafael Lovato Jr. on the podcast, and I got to learn a lot more about his, what he's done, and obviously the scene here is amazing.
He's a real incredible martial artist.
I mean, he's done some really things. I guess his dad is obviously part of that. I mean, it does seem like there is a family element to a lot of this, right? It's not just, if a kid gets into it, sometime I would assume probably their dad has some connection to it, or an uncle has a connection, versus like just your random, parents being like, oh, I think jiu-jitsu is gonna be great for my kid.
That tends
to do it. Does that fit
in the past? That tends to have been the case. There's always some common denominator between people that get involved in martial arts, but now more and more, I mean, it's becoming more mainstream, and it's not uncommon. Especially, I think jiu-jitsu has a relationship to wrestling that people kind of in the off season and stuff, that they transcend. They're very different, but they can hop between the two of them and learn things that they can apply into the other ones. So that's become a big influx into the jiu-jitsu community. But in general, now it's becoming more mainstream. It's not so weird. I remember we have a team member who went to high school with Rafael, and I remember he was telling me, like, back in high school, we were we knew this guy, and he's like, what is he doing on the mats, rolling around with all these guys and everything? And then now I'm like, man, I was an idiot. I really should have got involved back then because like he's the man and he's a world champion, and we were all just didn't know what he was doing. It's like, yeah, well, that's your typical martial arts story. The oddball guy gets, I'm not saying incredible champion, but gets involved in something like that, and everyone's like, what is he doing?
Yeah, he's grinding, putting in the hours, and it comes out. What did you think about wrestling? Was wrestling just like just thinking, you talk about going to OU and OU's wrestling and OSU's wrestling program. Was that ever in a consideration of going to school to be an athlete as well as going to do business?
For me, I actually never wrestled. And the reason why was my father was a wrestler as well. Okay. And he had to cut weight a lot and didn't want me to have to cut weight. And that didn't, now being an adult, I'm cutting weight for fights and stuff. So that didn't really work out. But cutting weight can be an issue with our sport. Yeah. They're actually gotten their hands around it recently, in which case there's a lot of rules. You have to weigh in multiple times in a day and every day, especially in jiu-jitsu, to kind of make sure that that's not happening to a bunch of young kids. But originally, that's why I didn't wrestle. So. All
right, yeah. So go to school, go to OU, graduate business degree, accounting degree, and then you come out and Dad's like, should we do this? And you're like, okay, so you dive into the business. What time of year is that? What's the state of the business at that point? And then is Dad bringing you in as far as asking you new questions of how do we pivot the business? How do we take it to that time in your life as far as what you were coming in fresh out of college and Dad's like...
Yeah, I think for me, my business journey really, so the timing of martial arts, it was interesting because it was on the tail end of our UFC contract when we used to work with the UFC. And so all these really inspirational things that I had, they were being exited. And so I got to meet Dana White. I was like pumped, and I was like, Dana's awesome, and all this stuff. And then like, oh yeah, by the way, it's not a good deal for us anymore. We're going to stop doing it. And it's like, whoa, crushed my soul. I thought this is why I wanted to do this. I get to hang out with all these incredible UFC guys. And the reality is that some of those contracts are just not, the next company that took it over was Reebok, and they ultimately almost belly up because of it. I mean, it was just not a good deal for the company, but that is a big, massive shift for us because the UFC was an entry into sporting goods stores like Dick's and Academy, and that presented my first kind of business challenge. We have other people, I can't take credit for what happened, but in time of our company, we had to tackle this all together as a team to replace all the products that the UFC had in those stores. And so that was a big undertaking for us as a group. But as we launch into this I'm the second generation of the company, what we're really after, what we're strategizing, and my generation will be, is that we used to be a distribution company. So we used to take products, we made some of them, but other people's products and things, and we served the martial arts community, the martial arts schools, to make sure that they had products to run their operation. We continue to do that, but we also have become a brand, and so we're in a big growth period where we're becoming a brand. We have not just Century anymore. We have a company called Gameness that's all they do is jiu-jitsu, and we also have a company called Punok, which is a WKF Karate, kind of Olympic karate style martial art, and that's the growth for us, is bridging this gap between being a distributor and a brand, and that really means a lot of things in between. But it's the future of our company. So
you have a magazine too, right?
We did have a magazine. We owned Black Belt Magazine. Was a big part of the founding of the company. So my father used to take out ads in Black Belt Magazine, which started in the 1960s, 61, and our company started in 1976. And so that used to be the way to do it. You were earth shattering if you had an article inside of Black Belt Magazine.
Back then.
Yeah, and so that's how we got started. And then, unfortunately, magazine companies and media companies had bought in that magazine, and were going to close it down. And so we stepped in, and we thought this is too historical for that to let that happen. And so we bought the magazine so it didn't go bankrupt, and bridged the gap. That was actually my job for a while. I was the president of Black Belt Magazine, and helped bridge the gap between being purely a magazine company into the digital age and being a media company. And kind of halfway through that, I found a partner of ours who was in the martial arts community who owned a media company, and we have transitioned, and they've acquired that from us. And so now it's off into better hands of somebody who can really do media. But that was an incredible journey, and a lot of history, and I guess weight on my shoulders of the history. It's like I used to say it was the chronicles of the martial arts in America, and the history that exists was like in my hands. It's back in the library here at Century. I may have kept the library, but I had to carry that and usher it into the future.
Yeah.
So that was
Any
cool.
highlights from those days? I saw you had some great cover shoots.
Yeah, so it was kind of cool to be able to go and one guy is my hero that kind of gets that is in the news these days too is Tim Kennedy. You know Tim, but
Special Forces guy.
Yeah, Tim was incredible. A lot of different photo shoots we got to do, but Tim was like, "Oh yeah, you want a photo shoot? Come out to Austin." I was like, "Yes, it's gonna be awesome." Me and my brother-in-law, who works with us, we went out there with our photo team, and everything was like, "Oh yeah, no, I did this with Men's Health magazine. Like, you don't just get to sit around and take pictures. Like, you guys brought your stuff?" And I was like, "I did bring my stuff because I figured you might do this."
Right.
And he put us through the most intense workout one of the most intense things I've ever done. And I thought like just the cardio, you know what an EMOM is? Every minute on the minute.
Yeah.
Did a lot of EMOMs, and then that was 45 minutes into it, and then he's like, "All right, get up in the ring. Now we're gonna spar." I was like, "You're an actual UFC fighter," and then the other 4 guys with us were actual fighters. It's like, okay, and then he just beat us up, and then it was like, "All right, we're gonna go eat some breakfast tacos, and then we're gonna hop across town and go to my gym because we were at a different gym," and then he's just proceeded to. I mean, he's a wrestler and a Jiu Jitsu black belt. He just beat us up like I've never seen before in my life, and that was our photo shoot. I was like,
guys, are capturing this?
I'm gonna bleed for you guys once again. That was good.
Wow.
It was an incredible experience. He's got an incredible story, and he's a true martial arts hero. So, Black Belt Magazine gives us some awesome access to, have a reason to go and talk to those kind of people and put them in our products and help show things off and showcase stuff. So it was a really cool period in my career.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to see, earlier you talk about the home pride of Oklahoma and being a representative of Oklahoma and where you're from and the people that you represent, going to all these amazing places and then using the magazine or using, your contracts with the UFC to really use that, but never forgetting that this is home for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Where are you from? I'm from Oklahoma. I'm from this area, and that's something that's really cool, right? You get to share, what you do with the rest of the world, but tell them about this awesome city and this state.
We actually do something. Made in USA it has a lot of power to it, but also made in Oklahoma. I call it being hyper local. So we're not just made in USA. I actually take the extra step and we try to make things that are say made in or designed in Oklahoma. And so if you ever look at some Century products on the labels or other aspects, there's either just like a shirt to State of Oklahoma and we have something in the middle of it, or we use the dream catcher and we put our values around the outside of it and say designed and handcrafted in Oklahoma and put that on stuff because I like to make my little imprint. I actually just recently tells you kind of I'm trying to tell people that we're on the map. Look us up. But we had a big distributor in fight for WACO, the organization of kickboxing, and Uzbekistan was a big player for them. And so we have a bunch of people go to Uzbekistan. We got to present them with a gift. You always go to these countries with a gift. Yeah. And I brought them a full Indian headdress from the Choctaw tribe, which we're a Native American-owned business. I'm from the Choctaw tribe. And I have this picture of us sitting there in Uzbekistan, and he's like, "Where is Oklahoma?" I'm like, where is Uzbekistan? I also have this problem, but hey, look, I know you guys wear the pushka, which is the big hair. And so I brought you my headdress. I thought we could take a picture. Yeah. You wear the pushka, or I'll wear the pushka, you wear the headdress, and it was funny.
That's such a great
kind of exporting Oklahoma to the world because I really
places you never thought you'd be. What you'd be doing, right? You
Uzbekistan. How am I going to get there?
Yeah. Who's that famous fighter from there? What's his name?
Khabib is from Dagestan, which is right next door.
Okay, well, yeah, because I remember the hat thing.
But they all kind of wear. That's right. Yeah. But they're all previous Soviet Union places that adopt those type of deals. Yeah.
Tough fighters over there, right?
They are intense. They do not mess around. The pictures of them in the mountains and running and getting all the kids up there and stuff, that's very real. Yeah. They do that. So it's pretty cool.
You mentioned kids. You got some kids of your own that are now getting into the fighting world.
Yes, it's part of our blood. So my cousin, or my brother-in-law works here as well. And so my nephews, they're both into it as well. And so we have a great Thanksgiving, so let's put it that way. It also ultimately ends in tears with everybody wrestling with each other and fighting. But my son is 7 years old, Hudson. He's in Jiu Jitsu. Just had his second tournament he's done just a couple weeks ago, and he won. Okay. I've got another one next weekend. And I have zero pressure, try to not be the dad that says do this. But he knows that it means a lot to me, and he's been enjoying training. And my daughter she's 3. She's not quite into it yet.
Not yet.
But I'd say
She will know how to protect herself.
Practice what you preach. I also think it's great for my kids, and my wife supports that. She didn't grow up doing martial arts, although her brother works for us as well, and it's changed his life just getting involved. It's incredible to see what it can do to people. He's a great use case as well. Like, he's young man, didn't know what to do himself, and then he gets involved, and it's like, look at this potential that was hiding inside of you, and the man you've become. So I hope that happens to my kids as well.
I think, you're right. Just being around it, taking away the kind of pressure, the stigma of whatever it is about martial arts, that people, they don't want to come in the door, they don't even want to knock or whatever it is, or just you don't have to get into a cage every single time.
No,
it's one of the best workouts ever, right? Like, I don't see many people in the martial arts that are out of shape at all. And you talk about your kids, and mutual friend of ours, Zach, wanted to ask, you were on his podcast, to keep going. Keep going. His logo is the Dreamcatcher too, which I love. But he had asked, what's it like being a dad and looking, at your Hudson, and being, you mentioned not being the kind of like helicopter dad, like, you're going to do this, you're going to be a rock star. It made me think of just the pressure of your last name. Right, like there's some of that. There's some. He's gonna have it. If, you've had it with your dad and the company. There's a lot on your shoulders, but at the same time, it's more. I get the feeling from you is that it's not so much a pressure; it's more of an honor. It's
an opportunity too. Everybody gets dealt a hand of cards, and you've got to play the cards that you were dealt. And so it is. And even my own father, and I think everybody who's involved in martial arts knows that there's a difference between martial arts in the 1970s, and there's a difference between martial arts in 2025. And there's a difference between the business in 1970s and 2025. It is a big burden, but the burden really is about, goes back to Oklahoma. It's that I feel very responsible for the jobs and to keep this business going for the community that we have here in Oklahoma, because 220 people may not be some of the oil companies we have that have thousands and thousands of employees, don't get me wrong, but it still is impactful to our community. And there's a lot of people that worked here for over 35 years. We had 5 people this last company meeting we had. We gave five of them that have worked here for over 35 years. Awesome. And tons of people. The list of people that worked here 25 and 30 years is big. So that's the weight, is making sure I don't let them down. They've seen me grow up, and kind of making sure that there's another day for the business tomorrow, because times are changing, tariffs, presidencies, all these things we have to deal with. They don't care about that. That's put that burden on my shoulders, but it is on my shoulders, and I do have to make sure that it's safe for them.
And you mentioned kind of earlier as well, like wanting to, you have spinning up new companies, you're trying to grow your social media, which is great, and looking forward, you're always looking at the future and kind of playing 10 steps ahead. With that in mind, what's coming up? What are you excited about? And what are the things that you're focused on at the moment and people listening can get involved with?
Well, for martial artists in particular, and our business side of it, we also recognized a long time ago, my father did, that sometimes martial artists aren't always the best business people. It's actually hard to be a great business person and a martial artist. The dedication it takes to be a proficient in martial arts enough to be able to instruct. For example, I am not the best at instructing because I have to do this and be in the business side. So to have both those things is kind of a unicorn. We started the Martial Arts Industry Association 20 years ago, and that has been going strong, in which case we actually help our customers and other martial arts schools educate them about the business basics, like how to deal with a landlord, how to pick up lease a space, deal with the contracts, insurance, how to do your basic income statements, and how to, what we call the student value, so your customers value the lifetime of their training, those kind of things. We offer those services to martial arts schools, and it helps them grow both as a customer, which is good for us, but it helps grow the industry. And I think a long time ago we figured out that it's great. I can preach to everybody and say, hey, go get in martial arts, go get in martial arts. But if I can go get one martial arts school owner to open up a school or open up a second location, then my impact went from, I just had to convince one person, and that one person can up to 150 students on average that they have at that school. So I'd rather impact these martial arts school owners, have them open up other, that's how I have a huge ripple effect to our community in martial arts. But, and as far as in Oklahoma, I think that we're starting to support a lot of fights in Oklahoma, Jiu Jitsu tournaments. We're working with the state of Oklahoma to become more of a fight-friendly state, and we have the tribes, and we have casinos, and we have all these reasons for people to come to Oklahoma. I mean, wrestling alone is a big reason for people to come to Oklahoma for martial arts and for wrestling, and so we're trying to foster that with the state to help bring events, bring fights, bring promotions, and hopefully some reasons for people to come to these shows.
Yeah, I mean, I went to an OSU wrestling match probably a month ago, and they're legendary, right? And obviously their coach is a world champion, and their previous coach is an Oklahoma Hall of Famer and an Olympian. Oklahoma likes wrestling and prize fighting, and so there's no reason for it not to happen more often. And like I said, you got all the casinos, and when I did go to a fight, I do remember it was at a casino, and so you got buy-in. It's just convincing people and making people aware of it. Like I said, people didn't even know that. Some people don't even know that you're here, and some people don't know we have all this stuff. It's just education and getting out there.
You see the fighters on TV and stuff, and you wonder how they got there. Just like watching the NBA or the NFL. You see these guys on the field, and it's like, man, what's their journey like? Well, the journey for most NBA players and most NFL players happened through high school football and call it these institutional mainstream things. And it's a little bit more capitalist in terms of the development for a fighter. So it's got to happen in the gyms and these martial arts schools, which we kind of help support them, but they're businesses. They're not institutional schools and things like that for development. And so we've got to help support and bring these clubs and these schools and these gyms up, and those guys support the fighters. And to be a fighter, it's a tough life, man. So it's not like anybody just hands you a whole bunch of money and a ticket to go in the UFC fight. You've got to have a ton of fights under your belt. You've got to juggle a job during all that while you're going in training. I mean, for my fight, I'm training no less than 3 to 4 hours a day while also being here. And it's in the morning, and it's after, and it's dieting, everything in between.
You dropped 30
cranky.
pounds, right?
30 pounds weight loss and sauna suits and all that. And then also keeping family. And but I'll say, if I can do it and run the business, have 2 kids, all these different things, train, anybody can do it. It's martial arts is a very obtainable thing, and it's a great hobby, and it's very productive hobby to have, as opposed to some things that can be destructive. But this is good for you. It makes you kind of a cup is full kind of mentality to bring these things. 2 questions to finish up.
Do you plan to groom Hudson the way that your dad did to you without telling him?
I probably will.
That started.
I probably will do so. But
and your daughter too.
The exact same way. I won't tell him that he has to do it, or I try to be a good father first, business second, but give him the opportunities to step into those shoes and to, I guess, make money as a job if he wants to, and see if it naturally, organically develops. But that's up to him. So.
Okay. Last question. My day job is real estate. Work predominantly in the luxury real estate space, and so I'll finish with this question: if you were to have your dream home today, what does your dream home look like? And this is your dream home, not your wife's dream home, not for the kids. This is for you specifically. No budget, just whatever you want to have.
Is it in Oklahoma?
It can be anywhere. You can have 2.
I mean, if it's in Oklahoma, then it's just got to have a giant dojo, I guess. I mean, that's. I'm in the process of potentially building a house, so we're going through this right now, and it's got a very big gym in the backyard. And my wife is like, "What is this? We're building. This is a second house. Like, why are you building a second house?" I'm like, because I got to have my place. What if we want to have a seminar? Or, Gracie comes to town. I got to take the Gracies to have a proper place. We have a gym here too, so I guess that's not a great excuse. But
you travel from your house to here. Like, you're saving that time.
I'm saving that time to wake up, and I don't have there's never an excuse to not train if you don't have. We've got a gym here at my house. Down the street. Then I can't be lazy. But if I had to have a house anywhere, it would be New Zealand. So.
New Zealand? Okay.
Yes, if you're in New Zealand, it's an incredible place. So.
All right, I've got to
go skiing, rock climbing, all the good things, martial arts. So.
Yeah.
What about you?
I would have a driving range in my backyard as a golfer, right? Like, I have a driving range and 20 acres and perfect kind of driving range, straight, flat, which is pretty easy to find in Oklahoma. So
there you go.
I do that. Right, probably have a nice big patio and have some people over, but I can't cook to save my life, so I wouldn't worry about the kitchen too much. So, where do people find you? How do people reach out? And how do people? Are you fighting next? When's the next fight?
I don't have any more fights on my agenda at the moment.
Okay.
I've been traveling a lot, attending fights. But anybody wants to find me, centurymartialarts.com is where you can find all things about Century, including our company's Gameness in Punok. I'm on Instagram, Mikey Dillard Century. Facebook as well. All our stuff there. It's stick to Instagram mainly though.
Same. Awesome. Appreciate your time, mate. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks so much.
It was a pleasure. People listening, I'll put the links down to Mikey's contact information, Instagram stuff in the description, and we'll catch you next episode. Cheers. Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. This episode is brought to you by the Doghouse OKC. Recently, I have been in need of some doggy daycare for my 2 pups, and the Doghouse have come in clutch. The team over there are incredible. They've taken care of my 2 golden doodles, and so it's been an honor to partner with them on the podcast and share the love. And the one thing that I do with the sponsors that I have is stuff that I use and recommend, like the Diffies with my car, Hall of Fame. They're awesome. Chickasaw Nation, huge supporter of Oklahoma. And adding to that is the Doghouse. And so if you're in need of doggy daycare in the day or boarding overnight, they do grooming and other cool things too. But I've had a fantastic experience, and it's an honor and a privilege to share this with you too. So go to thedoghouseokc.com and follow them on Instagram at thedoghouseokc. And hopefully our pups will run into each other. Turn your dream home into a reality with Home Creations, a family-owned and operated builder with over 40 years of trusted experience right here in Oklahoma. Call Holly at 405-364-9999 to schedule a showing or visit our website for more details. Home Creations, building homes, shaping futures, strengthening communities.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.